What if I told you that the world's most glittering paradise was never built on stone, but on a collective hallucination that just expired? Imagine driving a custom Cadillac at 200 miles per hour, only to feel an invisible hand reach out and pull the key from the ignition. That is exactly how the elite felt on March 2nd, 2026. While you were scrolling through Instagram feeds of gold-plated steaks and infinity pools, the smart money, the sharks sipping $20,000 champagne had already packed their bags. They saw the smoke before the fire. They knew that a $1,000 drone was about to paralyze a billion-dollar empire. Right now, as global markets freeze and the emergency exits at Dubai International are jamming with desperate millionaires, a new, cold reality is setting in. The tax-free party is over, and the bill has just arrived. But here's the secret the headlines won't tell you. This isn't a disaster for everyone. For the few at the top, this collapse is a calculated purge. Stay until the end, because you're about to find out if you truly own your assets, or if you've just been borrowing a mirage that is about to vanish into the desert sand. Under the brutal 40-degree sun of the Arabian desert, the silence is deafening. Look closely at the taxi ranks outside the Burj Khalifa. You'll see drivers sitting in a state of catatonic stillness, heads slumped against steering wheels, waiting for hours for a ghost that never arrives. Just across the boulevard, a Michelin-starred restaurant, the kind that usually requires a 3-month waiting list, has taped a desperate 50% off sign to its frosted glass doors. Inside, the air conditioning hums to an audience of empty velvet chairs. This is the sound of a dream flatlining. But if you zoom out, past the dusty windshields and the vacant tables, you'll hear a completely different sound. Pop. That's the crisp, metallic snap of a $20,000 bottle of vintage champagne being uncorked in a private villa on the Palm Jumeirah. While the masses are hyperventilating over their evaporating 401 ks and sinking property values, the true sharks of the financial system are clinking glasses. To you, this looks like a funeral. To them, it's a necessary purge. Think about it logically. Why would the world's elite celebrate the collapse of their own playground? Because, for the 1%, a crisis is just a fire sale with better marketing. They didn't get rich by following the crowd. They got rich by selling the crowd a dream at the peak and buying back the wreckage at the bottom. March 2nd, 2026 wasn't just a bad day at the office. It was the moment the Cadillac of the desert hit 200 miles per hour and someone, somewhere, decided to pull the plug. It started at Dubai International, a place synonymous with gold-leafed first-class cabins and clockwork efficiency. But suddenly, the seamless global hub turned into a claustrophobic nightmare. Why? Not because of a world war or a massive earthquake, but because of a few pieces of plastic and wire hovering over a fuel farm. The question isn't just what happened at DXB, it's who benefited from the paralysis that followed. Welcome to the day the mirage stopped shimmering. The sheer irony of modern power is that it's often as fragile as a house of cards. At Dubai International Airport, the crown jewel of global logistics, everything didn't come crashing down because of a massive invasion. It was paralyzed by something much smaller, much cheaper, and far more insulting. Imagine a high-tech mosquito, a simple drone priced no higher than a mid-range Apple Watch, buzzing circles around a billion-dollar defense grid, while the world watched in disbelief. Expensive interceptor missiles, the kind funded by massive defense contracts from giants like Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, were struggling to lock onto targets that cost less than a luxury handbag. It was a David and Goliath story, but without the biblical charm. This is the fatal flaw of hypercentralization. When you put all your eggs into one glittering high-tech basket, you're not just showing off your wealth, you're highlighting your target. As the energy choke point in Fujairah came under threat, the ripple effect was instantaneous. Global commodity markets didn't just dip, they shivered. Confidence, that invisible currency that keeps the world spinning, began to evaporate along with the smoke rising over the fuel storage areas. You see, in Dubai, safety was always sold as a baseline, as guaranteed as the chilled towel you get in a United first-class cabin. But that March, the safety premium everyone paid for their luxury real estate vanished into thin air. Suddenly, peace of mind became the most expensive commodity on the planet, available only to those who could bypass the chaos. The emergency private jet market didn't just grow, it exploded. Prices for a single seat out of the disruption surged to the cost of a suburban villa in Georgia or a high-end condo in Florida. The elite weren't just traveling, they were fleeing, leaving behind dazzling glass towers that now looked like empty skeletons. Capital flows are more sensitive than a radar, and as the smart money realized the foundation was built on sand, they didn't wait for the dust to settle. They realize that when the technological mosquitoes win, the giants have already lost. You know, there is a specific kind of silence that only happens when a heartbeat stops. On March 2nd and 3rd, 2026, that was the sound of the UAE's financial markets. For 48 agonizing hours, the pulse of capital simply ceased to exist. Imagine you are behind the wheel of a luxury Cadillac, cruising at top speed on a wide-open highway, and suddenly, an invisible hand reaches out and yanks the key from the ignition. That's not just a breakdown, it's a betrayal of the machine's fundamental promise. The symbols we were told to trust, Nasdaq, Dubai, ADX, DFM, weren't just fluctuating, they were switched off. By a single administrative order, the lights went out on what we once called financial freedom. Now, the official narrative sounded polished, of course. Regulators claimed they were protecting investor interests, trying to prevent a panic-driven stampede. But let's be honest with each other. When you lock the emergency exits of a burning building, you aren't protecting the people inside. You are ensuring they burn with the structure so the fire doesn't spread to the street. While the average retail investor sat staring at their laptop screens, watching their life savings turn into frozen, lifeless pixels they couldn't convert to cash, a very different game was being played behind the scenes. The titans of Wall Street, the Goldman Sachs and JP Morgans of the world, don't wait for the official shutdown order. These people are trained to smell smoke while the rest of the world is still enjoying the barbecue. Long before the pull the plug order was issued, the smart money had already executed their contingency plans. They didn't just walk out, they vanished through the kitchen door while the guests were still dancing. This raises a question that should make every investor's blood run cold. Is Dubai still a free market? Or was that freedom just a temporary subscription that the landlord could cancel the moment the bills got too high? When property rights and the freedom to trade are set aside by a stroke of a pen, you don't stop a stampede, ban kichwat makuk thou chite nook thumb lung. The trust that took decades to build didn't just break, it evaporated. And once you realize your safe haven is actually a high-end cage, the only thing that matters is how fast you can find the key. If you want to understand the scale of the madness, you only need one number: 131,234. That is the staggering amount of new housing units scheduled to flood the Dubai market in 2026 alone. To give you some perspective, that's not just a growth spurt, it's a tidal wave. But here is where the Instagram logic of the desert finally hits a brick wall. It's incredibly easy to build a glittering gold-plated tower that looks amazing in a 1.5-second reel. It's an entirely different story to find 131,000 people willing to drop millions of dollars to live in them when the ground beneath their feet is starting to shake. The reality on the ground is far grimmer than the glossy brochures suggest. While the cranes are still spinning, the actual completion rate has plummeted to a mere 59%. If you drive just a few miles out of the city center, you'll see them, unfinished steel skeletons standing alone in the silent desert. These aren't monuments to the future anymore. They are concrete graveyards. S&P Global is already losing its patience, and the off-plan model, the golden goose that allowed developers to build using your future money, is screaming toward a breaking point. But the real poison in the system is the silence of the big players. For years, Dubai was the ultimate no-questions-asked vault. We saw over $6 billion in hot capital pour in from Russia alone, acting as a financial lifeline. But that faucet has been turned off. As new, aggressive transparency regulations begin to tighten like a noose, the ultra-wealthy are realizing that their safe haven is becoming a glass house. Asian billionaires who are notoriously allergic to unpredictability are quietly folding their maps and looking toward markets with actual legal frameworks. They've realized that a beachfront penthouse isn't much of an asset if you're trapped in a liquidity desert. The smart money isn't just leaving, it's erasing its footprints on the way out, leaving the latecomers to hold the bag in a city of empty wonders. For decades, the word Dubai was synonymous with a financial blank check. It was the place where you could build an empire, stash your wealth, and never ever have to hear the word tax. But those golden days didn't just fade. They were officially executed. With the introduction of a 9% corporate income tax, the authorities sent a clear message. The free party is over, and the lights are being turned up. Now, you have to ask yourself, why would they do this now? Why kill the golden goose? The answer lies in a staggering $112.4 billion debt mountain hanging over the city like a sword of Damocles. With global interest rates skyrocketing, the cost of maintaining this desert glamour has become a financial black hole. The government didn't just decide to be normal, they ran out of choices. They started knocking on corporate wallets because the budget simply couldn't breathe. But here is the real political twist. To get off the global financial gray list and gain international legitimacy, Dubai did something far more damaging to its brand than just raising taxes. It sold its soul, its privacy. The domestic banking system, once famously discreet and flexible, has transformed into something stricter than an IRS audit. Imagine being a billionaire who values anonymity above all else, only to be questioned like a common criminal just to deposit your own money. It's not just an inconvenience, it's an insult to their business philosophy. As a result, a quiet exodus is underway. U.S. companies, from tech branches to consulting offices, are realizing that the cost of doing business in a desert mirage is now just as high as in Manhattan, but without the institutional stability they expect. The elite aren't staying to argue, they are shifting their assets to Singapore or Riyadh, places where the rules might be strict, but at least they don't change them in the middle of the game. Dubai wanted to join the league of transparent global hubs, but in doing so, it paralyzed the very model of absolute freedom that made it famous in the first place. The hunters have become the hunted, and the prey is looking for a new forest. In the end, capital is like a migratory bird. It doesn't care about the beauty of the scenery, only the safety of the nest. While Dubai was busy building the world's tallest ego trips, Singapore was quietly perfecting the world's most boring stability. And in the world of high finance, boring is the new sexy. We are witnessing a massive, silent exodus as titans from Google and Meta trade their Dubai penthouses for a more grounded existence in the Lion City. They aren't just looking for better taxes. They are looking for the ironclad predictability of a system where the rules don't vanish because an official had a bad morning. But the shift goes deeper than just moving from one skyscraper to another. The smart money is waking up from the virtual dream of flipping half-finished condos. It's flowing into the beating hearts of emerging markets like Vietnam and Indonesia, places where value is forged in factories and driven by the genuine consumption of hundreds of millions of real people. It's a return to real wealth, a far cry from the wealth created by shuffling deeds to glass bird cages in the desert. As the neon lights of Dubai flicker, the final act of this play is being written by the sharks who stayed behind. They aren't crying over the collapse, they are salivating. They are sitting on mountains of cash, waiting for the moment the purge is complete so they can buy up strategic ports and prime land on Palm Jumeirah for pennies on the dollar. For them, the decline of a city is just a normal business cycle, a liquidation sale of a paradise that overreached. As we watch the dust settle on this expensive mirage, it leaves us with one haunting realization that applies whether you're a billionaire or a retail investor. Glamorous marketing can attract attention for a moment, but only transparency and the rule of law can keep your money safe for a lifetime. It's time to look at your own portfolio and ask the question that Dubai's investors learned the hard way. Do you truly own your assets? Or are you merely borrowing them under the temporary permission of a government? Let us know what you think in the comments. The party might be over, but the lesson is just beginning.